In my travels, I had all kinds of things to happen to me. One time I was to speak at a camp meeting. They said, "Old lady, if you speak here tonight, we're going to burn the place down." I said, "Burn it down. I'll speak upon the ashes." Another time they said, "If you keep talking that women's rights talk, if you keep talking that slavery talk, we're going to lock you up in the stockade." I said, "Lock me up. I'll rock these United States like a baby's cradle." They said, "We don't care too much for your talk. They mean about as much as the bite of a flea." I said, "Small it may seem to you, but I bet I'll keep you scratching." It seems like whenever there's something out of kilter, the good Lord puts me right in the middle of it, and I help to straighten things out. I've been doing that all my life, you see. Now, I can't read nor write, but the good Lord gave me the wit and the intellect that I can hold my own against anybody. And I met some pretty interesting folks along the way, too. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Oh, I was born somewhere around 1797, upstate New York, Ulster County, not too far from the Hudson River, today New Paltz area. They gave me the name of Isabella Baumfree, Belle for short. We belonged to a Dutch family called the Hardenbergs. And Baumfree in Dutch means tall and strong. I grew up tall and strong like my daddy. My daddy's name was James. My mama's name was Betsy. We call her Mama Bet. Mama Bet told me I had 12 brothers and sisters, but they were all sold off by the time I knew what was going on. I was the only one left. The only one left. Oh, on a daily basis, I would see my mama just cry and look up to the sky and wondering where her children's be. And her children wondering where she be. During my lifetime, I was sold 3 times. The first time I was sold to the Neelys, and then to the Scrivers, and then to the Dumonts. At the Dumont, I continued growing stronger and taller. I was always big for my age. I was never old, but I was always big for my age. Sometimes I could hear them talking about me. They say, "See that Belle right there? All she do is pray and sing all day long. Don't cause me a bit of trouble." I didn't mind them talking about me. I just continued working and praying and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. After a while, Master Dumont says, "Belle, I think you're old enough now to take on a husband." He had somebody picked out for me, an older man by the name of Thomas. Thomas already been married 3 times, but I didn't have no say in the matter. I had to get married to Thomas. And together we had 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy. I named my little boy Peter because Mama told me I had a little brother named Peter. So I continued working at the Dumont farm, continued getting stronger. I would put Sophie on my back, my youngest daughter, continue to work in the fields. This particular day, we picking beans, I hear all the whispering in. I said, "What's all the whispering about?" They said, "Oh, we hear some news this morning, and we're going to pass it on to make sure that everybody hear about it." I said, "Well, what's the news?" They said, well, in 3 years' time, New York State's going to pass a law, July 4th, 1827, saying that anybody born after 1797, a woman 25 could be free, a man 19 could be free. I said, y'all sure you got the dates and time right? They said, yeah, we got it right. And we're going to spread it around till everybody know about it. I said, tell me one more time to make sure I got it right. They said, New York State's going to pass a law in 3 years' time, July 4th, 1827, saying that any woman born after 1797, 25 could be free, and a man 19 could be free. Oh, I thought about that. I didn't quite know how old I was, but I figured in 3 years' time I should be at least 25. So I started working around the clock, getting everything done, because when the time come, I don't want Master Dumont to say nothing. I want everything to be done. Mama said, work real hard to show yourself proof in your master's eyes. And I worked around the clock. July 4th, 1827 came about. I went to Master Dumont's house early that morning. Knocked on the door. Master Dumont, it's me, Belle. Today's the day so that I can be a free woman. It better be important, Belle. Wake me up, the sun's not even up yet. Some kind of jibber jabber but free a day. I'll be right out. Oh, I couldn't wait for him to come out. Just a matter of time, and I'm going to be a free woman. When he come out, he was fixing his suspenders. He says, it better be important, Belle. Waking me up, the sun's not even up yet. Some kind of jibber jabber talk about being a free day. I said, Master Dumont, today's the day that New York State passed that law saying I can be a free woman. Well now, you sure it's today? I said, oh yes sir, it's today all right. I have 3 long sticks. I've been marking the stick for every day, and it's been 3 years. And we've been hearing you talking about this day to other people. And we go into town and we see the signs all about. And we say, what that sign say right there? Oh, this is the day, sir. This is the day that I'm going to be a free woman. Well now, on that document, it said that anyone who is manumitted and be of a said citizen of a certain province could only be freed if the necessary documents were signed by the proprietor of the province. And he went on and on. I didn't know what was on that document, but I know he was just making things up to throw me off. I said, Master Dumont, all you have to do is go in the house and bring the paper back, and I'll put my mark on it, and I'll keep it in case somebody asks me, and then I'll show them my free papers. You can take your time, sir. I'll be right here waiting. Well now, I remember one time you cut your finger. That should put on for some more time right there. I said, oh no sir, no sir. I worked around the clock. I worked on Sunday, my one day off. I worked from sunrise to sunset. Look, as far as the eyes could see, everything's done. All the work's done. Well now, well, I'm gonna go on in the house, but I ain't gonna sign the document. You ain't gonna sign the document? Master Dumont, I worked 3 years to get to this point, sir. I'll wait right here. I'm gonna owe you some more time. how much more time I'm going to owe you. I'm going to owe you 3 more years? I'll just wait right here on the porch till you come back out. You can take your time. I waited on that porch until it was dark. I know I should be free today. I know I should be free. I know I should be free. Mama said, pray, Belle. Pray, Belle. Pray, Belle. Pray, Belle. Oh, I walked all over. I walked all over and I prayed and I prayed. I said, oh dear God, I can't wait another 3 years. I waited too long for these 3 years. What should I do, dear God? What shall I do? What shall I do? Walk away, Belle. Walk away, Belle. Is that you, God? Walk away to your freedom, Belle. But I still got my children back there. Walk away to your freedom, Belle. I can't disappoint God. So I went back and I told the older slaves to look after my children for me. I got to walk away to my freedom, but I'm coming back. So I'm going to be a little while and I'm coming back for them. Please look after them for me. So I packed everything I could in a little knapsack and I bring my oldest daughter Sophie with me because Sophie was a suckling baby. So I got Sophie and I walked away early in the morning. I walked for 3 days. The more I walked, I wasn't scared no more. And on the 3rd day, I walked right up to a little cabin and I knocked on the door. It belonged to a Quaker family called the Van Wagners. I told them my story. And they said, oh, Belle, you've gone through so much. Come in, Belle. Sit down and don't lift a finger, Belle. You've got to rest. Oh, Belle, you've gone through so much. But after a while, I didn't want to appear to be lazy, so I would help out with the stacking of the logs right next to the chimney, and I would rake the leaves and put the clothes in the line to dry. And they said, Belle, don't lift a finger. You can just sit and rest, Belle. Just sit and rest. And that night, I just sit and we talked. They said, Belle, you and your daughter can sleep in the spare bedroom. Oh, I never sleep in a bed before. I was about to go under the bed. The bed was so high. They said, no, Belle. You sleep here. You pull the covers back. You get in. You pull the covers over. You put your head right here, Belle. And that's what I did. Oh, and I slept in that bed from morning after morning, night after night, I slept in that bed. It was so nice and comfortable. But I said, this bed can make you lazy. Oh, I slept way past sunrise. Oh, but I stayed at the Van Wagners for so long. I was using their last name. I was calling myself Isabella Van Wagner. And over a period of time, Dumont sold my son Peter to his brother down in Alabama. I took him to court and I got my son back. That was the first case of a colored woman taking someone to court, suing them for selling their loved one beyond state lines. So I thanked the lawyers and the judge, and I got my son back. And I told the Van Wagners, I've been here long enough. I've been a burden on you for too long. I've got to make my own way. So I took Peter by the hand, and I took Sophie by the hand, and we just walked. I didn't know where I was going to go. I had no plans. I had no money, no family, no job. Everything I owned was on my back. So we just walked. And we ended up in New York City. Oh, that New York was something else. Well, there were so many people about to knock me over. Horses and buggies, and all the buildings were so close together, some tall and some small. And I can see the ship off in the distance and the birds flying. And right next to the buildings, there were a lot of hungry people. They were saying, just give me a piece of bread, please, please. But I had nothing to give them. I would if I had it, but I had nothing to give them. So I just walked. I saw a cross between two buildings. I said, that must be a church. So I went in there. It was the St. John Methodist Church of New York City. I told the minister my story, and he said, oh, Belle, what a story. All we've got is a little place joining the church in the back where we keep our spare hymnals and brooms and chairs. You're more than welcome to stay in there. I said, I'll take it. Oh, and it was so small I had to scoop down to get in. But at least we'll be out of the weather. So, of course, I started dusting the hymnals and the chairs and started putting everything together nice and neat. And that's where I worship on Sundays, at the St. John Methodist Church of New York City. But I didn't like the arrangement there. They had all the colored people to sit up in the balcony and all the white people to sit down front. I said, now if God were to come here now, I want to be able to run up to God and meet him and say, dear God, it's me, Belle. But if I have to come all the way from the top, down a flight of stairs, down through the center aisle, by the time I got down, God would be gone. I want to worship where I can be able to sit on the front seat. So I set out to find myself a place of worship. Took about 2 weeks or so, and I heard hymns being sung, and I followed the hymns, and I saw a lady thanking God for everything that God did for her. And then she started to shout, and she fell on the floor, and everybody got in a circle around her. It was the AME Zion Church of New York City. So I said, this is where I want to worship. So I worship at the AME Zion Church, but I still lived in the back of the St. John Methodist Church. As time went on, Peter got older and got himself into trouble. He was doing some devilish things with some of the older boys. Twice I had to go down to the constable office to talk to them, to try not to let them lock Peter up in jail. I said, what can we do with Peter? They said, ma'am, things are hard. People are starving, there are no jobs. But he said, wait a minute. Last week I read in the papers, they're hiring down at the Merchant Marines. So we took Peter down to the Merchant Marines and we signed him up. They taught him how to read and write, and he studied for about a year. He got his certificate, he got his uniform, he was tall and handsome, and he sailed off on the SS Nantucket whaling ship. Oh, that was a happy day. I waved to Peter and he waved back to me. He would write letters to me saying he's making new friends, enjoying the sights, enjoying the new places. But after about 2 years or so, the letters stopped coming. So I don't know what happened to my son Peter. I don't know, did he fall overboard? Did he get killed? What happened to him? So I continued worshiping at the AME Zion Church. I continued staying at the back of the Methodist Church, St. John Methodist Church. But my daughters were still back there at Dumont. So I started to pray. I said, God, change Dumont's heart for me. Work on Dumont's heart. And something told me to go back there. When I went back there, Dumont met me at the gate. He said, Belle, come on in. Invite me to sit down. We had some tea. He said, Belle, please forgive me for all the wrong things I did to you, Belle. Please forgive me. He said that slavery was one of the meanest things one person could ever do to another. Please forgive me, Belle. Now your daughters will have to stay until they're 25, according to that New York State law. But I'll make sure they're treated kindly and gently. I'll make sure they have food and clothes. I'll make sure they have a shelter. You can let your daughter Sophie come and stay with her sisters if you like. And I needed a place for Sophie to stay, so I would bring Sophie on Mondays and pick up Sophie on Fridays. I said, oh, dear God. Oh, you never disappoint me, dear God. Oh, God worked on Dumont's heart. Dumont had a change of heart. Oh, so I continued working and taking in clothes and washing as much as I could to try to make a few pennies here and there. And one day I was coming back from church. I saw this gentleman in a long white robe and a beard. He said his name was Matthias, and he lived in the Kingdom Commune on the outskirts of town. And in the Kingdom Commune, everyone is equal. Man and woman, they're equal. All colors. Red, white, black, brown, it didn't matter. Everyone got along together peacefully. Everyone lived together in peace and harmony. He said, you can come and live with us if you like. And I needed a place to stay. So I moved into the Kingdom Commune on the outskirts of town. What a big place it was. They had all kinds of fruit trees, peaches and pears and plums. And they had sheep and cattle and horses and pigs and chickens. They even had a silkworm. And they grew all kinds of vegetables and beans and corn. And of course, when I got there, I had to make my way. I started cooking and cleaning, but I didn't like the goings on there. And one day, mysteriously, Matthias was murdered. And in the papers, they had the cook, Isabella Van Wagner, was an accessory to the murder. Because I was the cook, I probably poisoned Matthias. So I went to court to sue them to get my good name back. In about a week's time, the paper was printed, said Isabella Van Wagner, the cook, had nothing to do with the murder of Matthias. So I got my good name back, and I got some money for that case too. That was the second time I went to court, and I was successful. I said, I indeed like this law. I must tell my people to find refuge in this law. But I said, oh, dear God, I don't like the goings on here. What would you have me to do? God said, Belle, be about your father's business. I immediately started getting ready. They said, Belle, where are you going? I says, I don't know. They said, well, Belle, how are you going to get there? I says, I don't know that either. I said, well, Belle, what are you going to do? I said, all I've got to do is do what my God said. He said, Belle, be about your father's business. He told me to walk up and down the countryside, to sojourn the countryside like the people did in the Bible. The people in the Bible sojourn the countryside. They walk through the hills and up onto the mountainside, looking for God, looking for peace, looking for a place to stay, looking for light and salvation. And that's exactly what I'll do. So that morning I left New York City with $2 in my pocket and a song in my heart. I dare not look back because, like Lot's wife, I might turn into a pill of salt. So, as I moved along, I said, now that I'm a free woman, I need a free woman's name. What shall I call myself? Because I don't want nothing of Egypt on me. I'm free now. I thought about what shall I call myself. God told me to walk up and down the countryside, to be like the people in the Bible, to sojourn the hills, the valleys, to go up on the mountaintop, to sojourn every day. I am a sojourner. I'm going to be walking up and down different states and cities and towns. I am a sojourner. That's what I'll call myself. I'd like that. So I continue walking, I continue humming. Now what shall my last name be? Wherever I go, I'll be a light. I'll be a light unto the people. I'll speak the truth wherever I go. That's it. Truth. My last name shall be Truth. So from this day forward, my name shall be Sojourner Truth. I like that. So I started walking from every town and every city. I would start to sing. People would gather around. Sometimes the crowd would get so rowdy they had rocks getting ready to throw at me. And I would sing and they would put the rocks down. I would tell them of my time of being a slave, of the selling and the beatings and the meanness and the working from sunrise to sunset. Oh, and people would gather around. I would go from one city to the next. Pretty soon, the women folk were beginning to come out. I would say, women folk, you got just as much rights as the men to own your own property and work outside the house. A man and woman should be equal. A man should not have dominion over the woman. And the word would spread from town to town. The crowds got bigger and bigger. Pretty soon, I had to get a secretary to keep track of all my speaking engagement. Oh, I didn't have to worry about a place to stay. They would say, Sojourner, you can stay at my house tonight. Sojourner, you can have dinner at my house tonight. You can have my buggy and wagon to go to your next destination. You can use my canoe to get across the river. Oh, I made all kinds of friends. Women who had the same kind of thinking as me, that all women should be together. And we should, of course, band together and have one thing in mind. We should go to the law and state how we feel and that we should have just as much equal rights as the men. We all had the same thinking, that men and women should be equal. Oh, the women folk would begin to gather around. And I traveled with this little book. Everywhere that I went, I traveled with this little book. I call it the Book of Life. Everybody that I meet, I have them to sign. These are some of the people that signed my little Book of Life. President Abraham Lincoln, President Ulysses Grant, William Phillips, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Charles Schultz, Lucretia Mott, Maria Charles, George Thompson, Frederick Douglass, John Brown, Harriet Tubman, put a mark right here on my paper, Jonathan Parker, Samuel May, Lydia Mott, Amy Post, William Still, William Lloyd Garrison, Susan B. Anthony. They all signed my little Book of Life. Then I took a picture of myself, and I will sell this while I did my speaking engagement. I call this, I sell the shadow to support the substance. Oh, that put quite a bit of pennies in my pocket, I tell you. And then a good friend of mine, Miss Lydia Gage from New York City, suggests I write a book. I says, well, Lydia, I can't read nor write. And besides, nobody want to hear about an old slave woman. They said, no, your life is interesting. They want to hear about your life, how you were freed and how you walked away to freedom, and how you changed your name and how you fought for women's rights, and how you spoke up for the abolition of slavery. The people want to read about it, not only here, but way in the future. They want to read about Sojourner Truth and what you did for women's rights. I said, well, makes sense. So I sit down, I tell her everything about my life, and she write it down. So the book was called Narratives of Sojourner Truth, a Northern Slave by Miss Olivia Gage. So when I did my speaking engagement, I had two things to sell. I would sell my picture and I would sell my book. Oh, that put quite a few pennies in my pocket too. Because after my sojourn is over, I'm hoping to buy a little cabin somewhere and settle down. I don't know where, but I'll settle down somewhere. As time went on, the Civil War was upon us. My daughters were freed from the Dumonts. My oldest daughter, Diana, had a son by the name of Sammy. Sammy was about 10 years old. Sammy started traveling with me. Sammy could read and write. So Sammy would drive the buggy, and Sammy would write my letters and read my letters to me, and read the newspaper telling me what's going on in the world. I would say, Sammy, what's going on in the world? He would say, well, Grammy, President Abraham Lincoln is undecided what to do with the former slaves down in Washington, D.C. at the Freedmen's Bureau. Say no more, Sammy. I'm going to go on down to Washington, D.C. and advise President Lincoln what to do. Went on down to Washington, D.C. Whoa, the room crowded with people. We all gathered in the room, but there were so many people, they didn't see us the first day. I guess they thought we were going to go away. We came back the next day. We all waiting our turn in line to meet the president. I'm waiting my turn. I got closer and closer. When it was my turn, I shook his hand and I had to look up. Now, I'm kind of tall myself, but President Lincoln was a tall glass of water, I tell you. He invited me to come in. He invited me to come in the White House to sit down and have some tea. And I said, now, ain't that something? Me, sitting down in the White House with President Lincoln, sipping tea. And President Lincoln, he signed my book, my little book of life, right here on the front page. For Aint I, Sojourner Truth, A. Lincoln, October 29, 1864. He says, now, Aint I, Sojourner, what you suggest I do with the former slaves down here at the Freedmen's Bureau? I says, well, President Lincoln, what we need is lots of open land. Lots of open land so that we can grow our own crops, so that we can build, we can raise our own animals so that we can barter with other places. And on that open land, we need lots of lumber so that we can build homes and schools. The little children need to learn to read and write, you see. We need to build hospitals and churches, different business organizations. We need to build stores. And in those stores, we can form organizations and we can talk to other places and build and prosper and build more land, build more places. Now, I don't expect you to do it overnight, because it takes a great while to turn this great ship of Zion. President Lincoln thanked me and I shook his hand. I thanked him for meeting with me. And I had a lot of respect for President Lincoln, because after about 3 months, the lumber started rolling in. People started building, because when it rained, it made mud puddles and everywhere was just a mud puddle. I would help out the best I could. I would help them in building their houses and helping the women folk to sew clothes for the children and make curtains for the window. And I said, anybody who got trouble with the law, see me. Because I've been to court several times and I've been successful. And I had to go to court a couple of times to speak on the behalf of some of the folks there. So after I got everything situated at the Freedmen's Bureau, I said, Sammy, read the newspaper. What's going on in the world? It says, well, Granny, the women in Akron, Ohio is having a women's rights convention. Say no more, Sammy. Akron, Ohio it is. I'm going to go on down there and see what my sisters be after. So, went on down to Akron, Ohio. 2 days women's rights convention. First day I sit way in the back. All the men doing all the talking. Women don't need to be equal to men. Eve by her lonesome turned the world upside down. Woman not as smart as a man. Now I say, if this is a women's rights convention, how come ain't but the men doing all the talking? But you remember, in those days, women dare not speak out in public. They'll be ridiculed and never seen or heard of again. But whatever the good Lord puts on my heart, I'm going to say it. I'm going to speak it regardless. So, that first day I went about my business. That second day I come back, I put my chair a little bit closer to the front. Oh, the same thing going on. Men doing all the talking. Well, there were some women sitting there, but they were quiet mostly. So I tapped them on the shoulders. I said, psst, 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 psst. Psst, psst, psst. They looked around and said, oh, that's that Sojourner Truth. Who let her in here? She's a troublemaker. Wherever she goes, she causes nothing but trouble. They're going to riot. They're going to burn this place down. Oh, this is a disaster. We can't let her speak. I said, I won't be long. I just have a few things to say. I won't be long at all. They said, no, don't let her speak. Don't let her get up there. She'll ruin us. I said, now how am I going to get up there? How am I going to get up there? I could see them all flustered. They said, oh, they started to fan. I said, no. I started to sing. It was early in the morning. Before I could get one word out, everybody turned around. They were pointing, mouths open. A couple of the ladies just fainted. Everybody said, oh, quiet, quiet, everybody. Everybody have a seat, everybody. They were like, no, Sojourner Truth, she's in here. Why she's here? Oh, she's a troublemaker. Everybody, I could hear all the noise, all the ruckus. I said, well, while everybody's talking and all the ruckus, I'm going to make my way up front. So I straightened my shawl and I started up front. All the way up there, they were pointing, mouth open. By the time I got up to the front, it was pin quiet. I sit in the back there and I listened to everything that was going on. Seems to me, you men folk talking about something the women folk already got. And that's freedom and equality. No one in this here room come out the mother's womb bound and shackled. We was all born free. So this freedom you're talking about is something man made up, not God. So where there's so much racket here, there's something out of kilter. I see all the books and flags and papers around. I can't read a word in them, but I can read the people you see. Now, That gentleman over there in that black hat, yeah, you, sir. I see him trying to scooch down. You, sir, you said that Eve by her lonesome managed to turn the world upside down. I say to the women folk in here today, shouldn't we be able to turn the world right side up again? Or the women got up and started to clap, but the men folk look at them so mean, they sat back down. I said, oh, I'm on to something now. And another gentleman over there, you said that a woman don't need to be equal to a man. I say to you, sir, if you've got a whole gallon and I've got just a little old pint, is it just plain old mean to deny me my little portion full? And someone over there somewhere said that a woman is not as smart as a man. Because if a woman was as smart as a man, God would have made Christ a woman. I say to you, sir, where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? Come from God and a woman, that's who. Man had nothing to do with it. So how can a man be smarter? Oh, and somebody say that a woman is weak. There's no such thing as a weak woman. They said a woman is weak and a woman is frail and she needs to be taken care of and given the best of places. No one ever helped me over mud puddles and into carriages and give me the best of places. And ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? Look at me. I'm tall and strong. In my younger days, I had big arms and muscles. I could outwork any man in this here place. No man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I work as much and I want as much. That's all the women folk want. We want as much. We're asking and we want as much. I bore 5 children. And I had to walk away to my freedom and I left them back there in slavery. No one knows a mother's grief like I do. At night when I get down on my knees and I cries out, no one hears me but my Jesus. No one knows a mother's grief like I do. And ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? So between the women up north here and my sisters down in the south, you men folk gonna find yourself right in the middle. And that's a bad place to be. Bad place to be. Now old Sojourner might not be here to see it, but there gonna come a time that women folk can speak out in public freely. They can run for public office. They can vote. They can work outside the house. They can own their own property. Oh, it's coming, and you can't stop it. It's coming. They're asking, you better let them have whatever they're asking for. Well now, I expect old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say. I thank y'all kindly for letting me speak at this here convention. I expect I'm going to be moving on now. I thank y'all kindly.